You're on Birds 365. A little slow getting my coffee. Sorry. I apologize for that.
No, it's my fault. I had the screen down. I would have jumped in, but I'm waiting for the music and I'm waiting for Jody Max. So I'll take the
McMullen. I just put the headsets on, heard the music. I said, "Oh shoot, get back to work, McDonald." Which, by the way, I just went upstairs, like I said, to get the coffee, and the wife's there, and she's like half asleep on the couch, and I said, "Morning, hon," and she goes, "You sure?" She got caught up. Have you ever gotten into a binging mode where it took over your life?
No, but I've gotten into a binging mode. Yeah, but I'm torn with binging because one, I like to do it, but I don't have time to do it. And then when I do it, I'm like, what the hell am I doing? I should be doing something else. So I'm one of those people.
Yeah, see, the last time it happened for me was a good couple of years ago. I never watched Game of Thrones.
Never watched it. I'm with you.
Still never watched it at all. You never went back and.
I'm not a big fantasy guy. And everything's fantasy, but whatever you want to call it. I'm not. It's not my cup of tea.
It was one of the greatest television shows ever made, but I didn't watch it for years. And so many people, you have to watch. I get tired of listening to it. And the one that previous that was 24. When 24 was on with Kiefer Sutherland, I was determined to watch it every single year. But then I would miss the beginning of it, and get 2 episodes. That's all right. Well, I get it next year, and then the next year, and then the next year. So one year, this was before I had DVR control here at the house. I would go to the library and get the actual DVRs.
Wow.
I still had an old school DVR player in the house and watch them. And I finally caught up to a season. I think I had to watch 4 via all discs and then caught up to it. At least with Game of Thrones, it was on demand. So I got to watch them all right in the comfort of my own home. But I did. I lost 2 days of my life. I just watched episode after episode after episode. I got up, I started watching, I had a meal, I went back to watching, I had another meal, I went back to watching, I went to bed, I got up, I started 2 days. The last 2 days, the only thing my wife has done is watch Yellowstone over and over and over and over again. So she goes, yeah, I went to bed at 6 a.m. And she's up now at, what time is it? 8:03. Because she's got stuff she's got to do today in the morning, but she's dragging because she can't turn the damn thing off. You got to be careful with that stuff.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, my wife, when we do get into something, should we do one more show? Should we go to sleep? Yeah. And then, so I kind of like it and I kind of don't like it. Like when Ted Lasso came back for last season, they did it one show at a time. They released one show a week, like traditional television. And I'm like, well, what the hell is this? I'm like, looking, where's the next episode? I sat down. I think I'm going to watch it, knock out 4 or 5, and hopefully you get it done in a couple days. And they're doing one show a week, and I don't like that. So it's kind of a give and take.
Understood. Yeah, the one that I'm watching that's streaming, but is one to. Have you watched Poker Face?
I saw it. I haven't watched it. It's on Peacock, right?
It's on Peacock. The lead actress is she's funny. She's different. She's got a different vibe to her than any other actress I've ever seen. For some reason,
Natasha Lyonne, I believe.
If you got her name, God bless it. I should know it because I think she's really good. The show started off good, had a couple of not great episodes. The last one was real good. And Thursday is when they put out their new episodes. So I binged to catch up for like the first 5 episodes, and they're up to about 8 or 9 now. But I will be watching that tonight. That's one of those where I actually do know the date. And even though it's streaming, I will watch it because I do enjoy that show. All right, our buddy Jimmy Kempski from Philly Voice, who is, as far as I'm concerned, the king of compensatory pick information, had a column the other day about if the Eagles were to lose all of their free agents, what would they be getting back as far as compensatory picks go? Because, Howie sung the praises of compensatory picks. He kind of threw up the flag that said, yeah, we're not getting all of these guys back. We know we're losing some. The question is which and who are we going to be able to retain and the like. So Jimmy, who understands, and oh, by the way, you talk about streaming and doing all these things. I can honestly say I do not understand the compensatory pick theorem. You have to be able to figure out exactly what a player did statistically and how much his salary is in comparison to the other salaries at that position to come up. They've got a formula and a theorem that tells you exactly what you got.
Well, there's only 32 of them, number one. So people have to understand that. You can only get 4 as one team. You can only have 4 of those 32.
What do you mean by there's 32 of them?
There's only 32 compensatory picks. Total
that will be given out in the league.
Yes. Sort of like another round of draft picks. 32 of them. 4 is the maximum. Now, there's more than 32 compensatory picks now. That confuses people, too, because now they give out compensatory picks for, say, Rooney Rule candidates when you hire. So there's more than – so that confuses people.
So is it 32 plus, or does that factor into the 32?
No, it's 32 plus. It's 32 plus. Those other ones are different. So in the category of just losing players in free agency, there's 32. And that number doesn't change. And even if you lose 5 of the top 32 players, which the Eagles could do this year, in theory, you don't get 5. You can only get 4. So you're limited to 4. Yeah, so it's confusing. But
and oh, by the way, and again, I'm readily admitting I don't understand the theorem, but one of the parts I do understand is if you sign a free agent, then that plays against a free agent that you lost.
Oh, yes.
If there is a comparable player, salary, production, and the like, let's say the Eagles lose 5 free agents, but they add 2 free agents would fall into that compensatory. Well, and they're only going to get 3 picks. So it isn't just you take the top 4. Eagles got 4. What rounds would they be in? Boom, put them in your draft.
That's one of the most frustrating parts of it as a reporter, because as soon as you lose a player, and trust me, so I'll use Javon Hargrave as an example. If he signs a big money deal as people expect, I'm going to get – do the Eagles get a compensatory pick for that? Most likely is the answer, yes. But it depends on what they do in free agency. And Howie's very smart with that. That's why he talks about it. He's not going to sign a player that will affect his compensatory pick for Javon Hargrave. So, yeah, most likely you're going to get a 3rd-round compensatory pick if he signs a $20 million deal. But, again, there's a lot of factors. That's not – in other words, when he signs his contract, it's not – oh, you get a 3rd-round compensatory pick. It depends what happens not only with what you do, but the rest of the league.
Sure.
If somebody else out there is getting bigger deals, and it's probably not going to happen. But again, there's 32 throughout the league, and every single contract factors into it.
And the numbers that Jimmy speculated on, these are purely speculations. Jimmy's pretty well entrenched, so I think he's probably going to get most of these right. He's certainly going to get them all very close. For the Eagles free agents, Hargrave top one. And by the way, the highest compensatory pick can get is the 3rd round. There are no 1st or 2nd round compensatory pick. That's the creme de la creme, would be a 3rd rounder. He thinks Hargrave will get a 3rd. Bradbury either a 3rd or a 4th. Chauncey Gardner-Johnson a 4th, Isaac Seumalo a 4th, Fletcher, he doesn't even think. Now, if he comes in at $4 million, come back to the Eagles of $4 million to anybody else, that's right. He's not going to get you a compensatory pick. He thinks Miles Sanders, and again, the Miles money is one of the more debatable things during this offseason. I've heard some people speculate that Miles is going to get good money on the open market, multi-year deal. I'm not sure that that's the case, and I think the couple of franchise tags out there, yes. Do they take those players out of landing somewhere else out of the mix? Sure. But they also take those teams out of the mix for Miles Sanders. Miles Sanders not going to the Dallas Cowboys. They franchised Tony Pollard. He's not going to the Raiders because they franchised Josh Jacobs. So I just got the feeling that Miles isn't going to be as highly paid as some other people think, but he put him in as a potential 6th rounder. TJ Edwards, a 5th rounder, and that's another one. I got no idea. Now, TJ, you and I are both TJ guys. I said last year the Eagles should have extended him. They extended him 1 year. Maybe Howie should have gone more than that. But I suggested that before the Eagles did it. You've been singing TJ's praises since last year into this year's camp and all year long. What's TJ's market going to be?
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. And I could see it anywhere from like 7 million to over 10. It's going to be a pretty wide berth. There's some teams that value linebackers more than others. Let's be honest. And so that's one of those positions. Look, do the Cardinals come in and say, all right, we got Jonathan Gannon and Nick Rollis, let's get TJ Edwards to lead our defense. Let's pay him $10 million a year. Then I think he's leaving. And compensatory pick a little bit higher maybe than expected. But again, and I think Jimmy put it at the end, 4, that's the limit. You can't go above 4. So even if you lose Miles Sanders and even if you lose TJ Edwards, and they would have factored in, you're not getting those picks. You can't go above 4. So that's a lot of picks. It usually takes care of itself on a typical year. You're never going to get up to that number. This year, the Eagles could push it. They could push it to where, in theory, they should get 5 or 6 compensatory picks, but they can only get 4. It doesn't go above.
And oh, by the way, you get the 4 top picks after you have the comparison of any free agents you sign. Let's say they lose Fletcher Cox, but they sign let's stay on the defensive line, and a free agent with the same type of production and the same type of salary. Well, then those two negate each other. But for the ones you don't have a matching free agent that you sign to replace, you get your top guys. So you got some of the ones that are down near 7 or 8. You're going to have to work a little bit to get to them, which is where I disagree with Kempski. See if you're with me on this. He had Kaiser White as a potential compensation 7th rounder, Marcus Epps as a potential 7th rounder. Now, those are 2 starters on defense. So you're speculating at what you think their number is going to be on the free agent market, and that drives it as much as anything else. But he said that he thought that Andre Dillard could be a 5th or a 6th. So he's banking on someone giving Dillard a pretty damn good contract to step in as a starting left tackle. And Gardner Minshew is a 6th round. Gardner's going to get a contract that's going to show that he's going to be given a chance to compete for a starting job in this league. I don't think so.
Value of the position, though, Jody. Left tackle's easy, right? I mean, those guys get paid. And even though Andre's probably not going to get paid what he would have, if he played, somebody's going to give him a pretty decent deal. And we already saw Kaiser White. Kaiser's going to get a similar deal to what he got last year. Marcus Epps, I think, the Eagles are probably going to keep Marcus Epps because I think he's going to be pretty cost effective. It's just even backup quarterbacks. Backup quarterbacks, you're talking about $5-6 million a year because of the cap going up. And if Gardner generates that, it's going to be more than an off-ball linebacker. So I get his thought process. Certainly Dillard, that's a no-brainer. Getting a potentially a better pick than Kaiser White or Marcus Epps. Gardner's a little bit more iffy, I would say. But how many names did you run down there? It was at least 7 or 8.
Oh, I think 8.
Yeah. So
and one of them is not Fletcher Cox because he speculated Fletcher's number is going to be low enough that he wouldn't even generate a compensatory pick.
So
Gardner Minshew, yes. Andre Dillard, who couldn't get on the field, yes. But not.
It's all got to do with the contract. And I want to emphasize again for everybody listening, the Eagles are not getting 8 compensatory picks. 4 is the hard limits, and they probably will get 4, to be honest.
Yeah, it looks like they're going to have at least that many guys leaving. But again, and you got to replace guys. I know the main belief for the Eagles this year is, and three of them are already pretty much set in stone, that their 3 first-round draft picks from last year that didn't play much this year are going to have every opportunity to step in and start next year. And they're going to have their 2 first-round picks, their second-round pick, their third-round pick. They don't have draft depth as of right now. Can Howie do the Monty Hall thing and move some things around and trade back to add numbers of picks, volume of pick, maybe. But if you're going to get really young, that's sometimes what's your favorite Jim Schwartz quote for
startup costs, baby?
Startup. It sounds to me like the Eagles could be looking at some startup costs this year, Johnny Mac.
They are. I mean, they didn't go through them with Jordan Davis. Well, a little bit. Jordan, I think people forgot Jordan before he got hurt was starting to ramp up. So they got some of it out of the way with Jordan Davis. They didn't get any of it out of the way with Nakobe Dean and Cam Jurgens. So those are 2 guys they're penciling in. There's going to be some startup costs there. And then 10th pick in the draft, 30th. Ultimately, I think if you force me to say right now, I think they're going to try to trade out of 30 and try to get some mid-round picks. They don't have any in the 4th, 5th, 6th round right now. But either way, they're not going to go down too far into the 2nd round. So they're going to have young players from the draft this year they need to get on the field relatively quickly, and it's going to be startup costs with them as well.
Startup costs are not something you usually think of for a team that's got Super Bowl aspirations. That if you've got several different guys, you're throwing one guy in the deep end of the pool, you're going to try and help him out. Okay, that's fine. Eagles will have several guys that you would put into the startup cost category at key positions, more so defense and offense, but you get my drift. They're going to need to go young. And
I mean, brought up Milton Williams and Marlon Tuipulotu. I mean, they're going to count on them as well, and they're still very young players who haven't played a ton. Milton's played.
I would take Milton out of the startup cost category.
Well, he's going to have a much bigger role than he's used to, I think.
I think so, but I think he's played enough that he should be up to speed, and I think he's kind of earned the additional snaps and reps that he's going to get, because when he's been put in, he has performed. So I'm a Milton Williams fan. All right, we'll take a quickie timeout. Chris Landry from LandryFootball.com, former NFL coach, scout, college coach, and scout. He still does consulting work for a bunch of NFL teams. So therefore, he was out in Indianapolis for the Combine. Eagles are already starting to invite some players in. You got 30 invites between the Combine and the actual draft, where you can bring players into your facility and give them that much more of a
by the way, did you see the 3 players reported what they were, Jody? So far, 3 top 30 visits.
They were.
Who they are? Offensive tackle,
two offensive linemen from the same team, Ohio State.
and a big defensive tackle.
Shockingly, Eagles are going to bring in 3 trenches guys. That's Howie Roseman's MO. But again, crunching numbers. They have right now, 8 draft picks? They got 1 extra. They're missing 3. They've got 2 extra. So no, they've only got
no, they got 2 first rounders, a second, a third, and I think 2 7th rounders right now.
Right, so they got 1 less. They've only got 6 draft picks, but you got 30 guys you can bring in. So you can bring in a whole bunch of guys you're never going to have any chance to pick, because you got more visits than you do draft picks. So don't think just because the first 3 who have been identified are going to be Eagles. Although I am a big fan of the Ohio State linemen, who may or may not even be there by the time they pick at number 10. All right, Johnny Mac coming back. Chris Landry from LandryFootball.com scheduled to join us here on Birds 360.